With so many choices out there, how are you going to decide which Warhammer game you should be playing? Let's talk about that. Here at Tattoo Tabletop, we have a lot of fun, so be sure to like, share, subscribe. It's all completely free and it helps me out. And if you really want to help me out, come join our Patreon. Link is in the description where you can come post and talk about your favorite minis. Now back to the video. Welcome to Tattoo Tabletop. My name is James, and as you can tell, as always, from my background, I am a bit of a Warhammer person. I really love the worlds of Warhammer. I've played many games across Warhammer, and I do often have people ask me what my favorite rule system is, but that's not what we're asking today. What we're asking is, what is the Warhammer game for you? Maybe you've already started your Warhammer journey. Maybe you're just looking and you're just starting to get involved, and maybe you got a friend who's inviting you to play one and you're having difficulty choosing which one to go with. Well, I am here to guide you. I'm here to be your Warhammer Sherpa, to lead you up the mountain to whichever mountain you're supposed to be climbing. But we're going to go into a little bit of what I know of each of the game systems, and admittedly, there are some games that I haven't played. I've looked at some of the mechanics, but I'm going to do my best to represent them here and to make an argument for or against or any plethora of things. In the meantime, of course, if you like this content, feel free to like, share, subscribe. It is all down below. And hey, let's just get right into it, shall we? So, question number one, when you're asking yourself what Warhammer game you are going to play, there's one thing you need to consider first and foremost: setting and story. I know that's not necessarily where some people start. Sometimes it's, miniatures, sometimes it's how many people play the game. But here's the thing that's actually going to keep you in the game and keep you playing the game is being interested in the setting that you are involved in. If you are a huge Lord of the Rings fan, you're not going to buy Star Wars Legion and expect yourself to enjoy it. That's a different game system, that's a different setting. You want elves, you want dwarves, you want a more fantasy setting. So it's not going to make sense for you if you're picking something that doesn't involve that. So if you're a sci-fi person, you're probably looking more into the Warhammer 40K. If you kind of like that kind of aesthetic, the moments of cyberpunk, of alien worlds and stuff like that, and of course the accompanying grimdark vibe, then you'll look at 40K. Now, if you're interested in more of the fantasy element, magic, wizards, witches, etc., that kind of stuff, then yeah, you're probably looking at Old World or Age of Sigmar, depending on the style of gameplay, which of course we'll still dive into and kind of split up a little bit more so that there's a little bit more clarifying detail as to which one would appeal to you more. So, number one, first and foremost, is going to be your setting. Which one draws you in the most? This is where I would first encourage you to start your search, because that's what's going to make probably the biggest effect. Number two, models. Models does make a difference. At the end of the day, when you're looking at the different model ranges for all the different game systems, if you're not interested or you don't think the thing that you're interested in, its models look good, if you think they look bad, then it's probably going to dissuade you a little bit, right? You're not going to want to paint all that, or you're not going to want to suffer through that and get to the other side and realize that you don't like the thing because you don't like the look of the model. So it does kind of separate it out a little bit. I think it's one of those interesting moments where even both of the major game systems, which would be Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40,000, both agree that Age of Sigmar has better miniatures, but also part of that does come from tactical nature, in my opinion. Obviously, with Age of Sigmar, you're not going to have 8 million guns staring you down. There are some factions that do have guns, but it's not as prevalent as, say, Warhammer 40K, where you have very specific terrain layouts and very specific board layouts to help you maximize the fairest game possible to play. But the models are going to play a major role into that. I mean, obviously, I'm drawn in by many when it comes to the game systems that I'm very interested in, like Warhammer 40K. I love my Space Wolves, I love my Dark Angels, I love my Chaos Marines, I love my Votann, Orcs, etc. All of these models draw me into them. Age of Sigmar, adore my Seraphon, love my Fire Slayers. I love all these factions because I love their lore, I love their setting, and I love their models. Even the Fire Slayers, ones that are probably most due in my wheelhouse, in my armies, that probably are most due for an update. I still love their original models. I painted them up to the best of my ability. I enjoy them, and actually they're pretty quick to assemble, which is also a very nice aspect. So for number two, it definitely has to be the models. They have to be able to pull you in and keep you interested. Number three, and just as important as the other two, but I would still say somewhat less, just like a hair. There's like just a little bit, is rules and gameplay. Now, this section is probably going to be the longest, so brace yourself. Anyway, so when we're talking about the game system, what does that mean? That means your rules. That means how the game plays. That means its battle size, terrain, yada, yada. Your barrier to entry can also be a major aspect to that, obviously. There's going to be multiple different game systems and multiple different things that are going to draw you in for different reasons. Now, in my case, we'll just go through all the game systems for me and I'll explain what I really enjoy about them and how accessible I think they are. For Age of Sigmar, your stat line is straightforward. When you buy a model and you're given a data sheet of some kind, it tells you exactly what you need. It tells you how far you move, it tells you your save, it tells you how many attacks, it tells you what you need to hit, it tells you what you need to wound, and so on and so forth. It's a very direct game. And for that reason, I would argue that Age of Sigmar is one of the most beginner-friendly games because it's very accessible in the fact that if you buy the War Scroll cards, you're going to see the stats that you need right on the card. It's going to make that easier. While the game does still actually have a decent range of tactical depth to it, affecting terrain, stuff like that. Not as crucial, I would say, as Warhammer 40k, but I'd say still pretty good. And you, of course, with all the different combinations and stacking buffs and stuff like that, you still have a high skill ceiling that can be flexed there while a still low barrier to entry. So that's one of the elements that I love about Age of Sigmar, along with the setting and, of course, the all the really cool models and stuff that goes along with that. With Warhammer 40,000, I really love the setting. I love the different Space Marine chapters and all the different factions I have, but I also really love the tactical depth of gameplay. Some people don't like 9th or 10th, haven't liked 9th or 10th edition. I am not here to try and convince you that those are really good rule systems, but I would say that right now the meta is actually sitting in a pretty decent spot. Everyone's kind of balanced out. You do have your moments where you can foreseeably see you beating your opponent, as opposed to there have obviously been times in the meta where an army was so rampant that it was just show up to table, game over. For me, I really love the tactical depth of it in terms of I like the terrain layouts. I like the templates that go down on the table to kind of give you a very clear indication of this model can be seen, this model can't be seen, this gets covered, this doesn't get covered. There's not a ton of fudging with the rules, which is very nice. I mean, there are some complicated rules interactions sometimes, but for the most part, you're getting a very clear set of rules. This is visible, this is not visible, so on and so forth. It helps speed up the gameplay, makes it a bit more tactical, a bit more depth because you're aware of your movement shenanigans and the things that you can do. I also would argue that at least right now in 10th edition, if you're watching this past 10th edition, sorry, your detachments are very straightforward. You have an army rule, you have your detachment rule, and then you have 6 stratagems. It's very clean cut as opposed to 9th and 8th edition. There was a lot of stratagems, and sometimes you were using all of them, and other times you were just using 3 or 4. So it's kind of nice now that it's very slimmed down. It's very straightforward. Army rule, detachment rule, 6 stratagems, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And of course, let's just go ahead and give this the props that it is. Warhammer 40k, for the most part, is pretty accessible community-wise. It's one of the most popular Warhammer IPs out there right now. So there's a ton of people that you can probably play with that do play Warhammer 40k. You will find tournaments, RTTs, GTs, etc. You'll find events and narrative events going on probably more prolifically depending on where you're at in the US or, world. I think that's one thing that is a pro in its presentation is that you're going to be able to find games. Sometimes we dive into games and we dive in without friends. I had one friend who joined me. In my case, I kind of outpaced him in terms of my collection, but we still have played some games here and there. But it's what allowed me to get into the tournaments, to make friends in my friendly local community and stuff like that. It really was starting with Warhammer 40k, branched into Age of Sigmar, etc., etc. Even though Age of Sigmar, ironically, was my first 2,000 points and my first RTT, Warhammer 40k does have a larger community in that regard, so you're always going to be able to find someone to play. And if you like that sort of tactical, modern, guns, but still close combat and stuff like that, I think there are some rules interactions in 40k that are very fun, very thematic. I think the 10th edition rules have actually been pretty solid. The only one that we had a few boo-boos on was Nurgle being really strong, but it's being toned now. It's being worked on now. So But as a whole, I felt like the entire meta of 10th has been actually pretty balanced and actually has done pretty well. So that might draw you into Warhammer 40,000. Now to dive into games that I haven't quite started. Now there is one that I'm currently building. I'm building Horus Heresy 3rd Edition. I bought the Horus Heresy 2.0 box. Very interested in starting there. I kind of fell behind. I ended up selling the models that I did have, and I was trying to find a new way to approach it. And lo and behold, 3rd edition comes. I see the Saturnine box and I'm like, those Mark II Marines look tight. I was very excited to get started with that. And now this is where things get a little funky, at least for me, because I haven't played 3rd edition. However, I am going to defer to a lot of people in the community. So, for example, SN Battle Reports, who does only Heresy now, have said that the rule system for 3.0 has been really good. The only one that they've had trouble with is some of the terrain rules, which they've made some house rules. And from what I understand, Horus Heresy has always had some house rules in some way, shape, or form to make things work or to make things more balanced. So no surprise there. For me, the thing that's probably going to draw you into Heresy, if that's what you're particularly interested, if you see the models, or if you see the setting, is probably the setting. Let's be honest. It's the setting. You love the Horus Heresy, you love the big grand scale battles of Space Marines versus Space Marines, or demons mixed with some militia or whatever. There's a ton of different options in there. Even though it looks very samey, you're thinking, oh, Space Marine versus Space Marine, but it's not Space Marine versus Space Marine. It's World Eaters versus Emperor's Children, or World Eaters versus Space Wolves, stuff like that. You're recreating, in your mind, you're probably recreating a historical battle that did happen during the heresy, but just wasn't documented or what have you. So the setting is what's probably going to draw you into it for the most part. And it is a very intricate rule system. You have massive, you know what? Hold that. This is the army book. Just the army book. Now, keep in mind, this does have all the traitor legions in it, so it has everybody in there. But just this is your army book. That's it. And then you have to get the core rules, which come in the Saturnine box. Or, oh my god, I dropped everything. Or, fortunately, in this case, it does come with a nice little cheat sheet. It does talk about the different statuses. There's different phases, advanced reactions, core reactions. Has your to wound chart. So this is actually very nice. This is a reason to buy the starter box, is because you get this, and this is probably worth its weight in gold. I'm sure there's somebody who made a cheat sheet for it somewhere as well, but when I do get into Heresy, this is going to be sitting right next to me. But that's the reason you're going to get into Heresy. Now, for Heresy, especially, another reason you might be getting into it is because it is narrative focused. Like I mentioned, it's the setting that drew you in, probably, if you're looking at Heresy, but it's also probably the narrative aspect that might make you stay. There's a ton of people who do love the Heresy setting, and they love the narrative events. It's much more engaging in that regard, as opposed to you're going to a tournament to win games. Maybe you don't care about the narrative. Maybe you're there for the competitive aspect of it, and that's totally fine. To each their own. I like a little bit of both. I do enjoy the competitive aspects of 40K and Age of Sigmar. 40K, I think, has just a hair more, in my opinion. There is a certain aspect of that, as opposed to Heresy. You're having the more narrative experience, and that's probably what you're going to enjoy. And of course, the models. The models, they've been releasing so many kits in plastic, and they look incredible. I've absolutely been adoring them. And I really can't wait to finish my Sons of Horus so that I can actually start playing. All right, for the next two, I'll kind of group them together, but I'll try and keep them as separate as possible. So let's start with the fantasy one, Warcry. Warcry right now is sitting in a little bit of a weirder position. We are not 100% sure on its future at the present moment. I have a feeling it's still going to be around. The Warcry warbands have actually been kind of nice little supplements to the Age of Sigmar armies, because as they've been getting added, they have been allowed in the Age of Sigmar armies, which I think is nice. It's a nice way to be like, okay, well, here's for the Warcry community, but you can also use this to supplement and enhance an existing army, especially if that army is a long way off for its new book. So I think as a whole, that's also pretty nice when they do that. I like it. So, and for Warcry, of course, it's more of a back and forth. I move a model, do a thing. You move a model, do a thing. Some people like that more back and forth kind of thing, versus I take my entire turn, you take your entire turn, so on and so forth. So I think that's another aspect to it. And of course, the more war bands, skirmish, it's a quicker game. You can have some really cool fun terrain. You can have some really cool fun interactions. And there are some kind of special rules in Warcry that I think make it very dynamic. And I've heard quite a few people that say Warcry is their best rule set. But I've also heard that from a lot of people. I've heard Lord of the Rings is the best rule set. I've heard this is, well, long story short, the best rule set is always going to be the game that you enjoy more, and end of story. Like you can have things that are really well written, period. But if someone's not interested or not playing the game, then it's kind of hard to make the argument that it's the best rule system. Because if it was, then there might be a lot of people who are drawn to it. But setting is also a major part of that. So Warcry is more of the fantasy skirmish. That might be the one you enjoy. Or the other one you go to is Kill Team. Now, Kill Team is 40K's equivalent. Now, Kill Team First Edition is actually how I got to my 2,000 points of Dark Angels. I started with me, one friend, and another friend getting into a Kill Team league at another shop that was called Lucky Dice in Owatonna here in Minnesota. We drove over when we were in Mankato, and we played regularly every Wednesday night, if I recall correctly. And that was not, it didn't have kill teams at the time like Kill Team does now. What you had was you built a kill team out of your specific model. So maybe you want some Primaris Intercessors. So you bought a box of Primaris Intercessors. You're like, okay, I want 3 Intercessors, 2 Reavers, and this or something. And it really did do its work, in my opinion, of creating a method to slow grow a 40K full 2,000 points. Because again, you play the game and maybe you were like, oh, I could have really used some Primaris Intercessors here, or I could have really used some Reavers here. And so you went and bought a box, you built them, you painted them, you put them on the kill team table, and you're like, oh, well, I probably could use, especially when they added the expansion, oh, I could really use like some Terminators here. So you bought Terminators. Again, it really worked in Games Workshop's favor, and it was a miniaturized version of 40K. So realistically, it actually kind of felt like you were learning the rules of 40K while you were playing. Kill Team now is not that. For full disclosure here, that's not what it is if you were listening to that first part. It is a completely different rule system. It completely works in a completely different way. It has different representations. It has a completely different feel to it. And I kind of understand in terms of, Games Workshop wanting to make it very distinctive and very different. But I think, in my opinion, and again, this isn't shade at the game. I hear great things about it. I'll probably get back into playing it again. I did get one of the starter sets for it. I think as a whole, it's, again, it follows that skirmish mentality, that skirmish kind of gameplay. But as a whole, I think the first edition was a better way of, building you into 2,000 points of, 40K, as opposed to what it is now, where you can play Kill Team completely separate. And I'm sure that's how some people prefer it, because that's the way that they've been going with it. But it also could be GW trying to separate their money, as many articles have talked about, where they're trying to remove cross pollination or cross contamination of budget. So, they're trying to figure out, if someone's buying this Warcry Warband or this Kill Team, are they doing it for 40K or are they doing it for Kill Team? Right now, Kill Team does still supplement 40K. Again, same argument for Warcry, but in the 41st, or I guess technically 42nd millennium now. But I think that that's a positive. In my opinion, I think it's a lot better that Kill Team can be used as its own separate thing, while supplementing the rules of Warhammer 40K, like the Nemesis Claw Kill Team. It gave us plastic upgrade Night Lords, which I bought plenty of sprues. I have my Night Lords. They're literally right there. It's really cool to have that additive in there, and I really enjoy that. I think that's a nice way to potentially pull some people into trying Kill Team, while at the same point giving up a new option for Warhammer 40,000. So I think that is a major plus as well. Kill Team, Warcry, those are your 2 skirmish ones. Smaller, a little bit quicker, a little bit more back and forth, we're alternating activations and stuff like that. So maybe that's your game. Last but not least, let's dive into one that's I'm not really going to be able to talk much on: Warhammer Underworlds. That one specifically for Age of Sigmar. From my understanding, it hasn't been doing well. And in my opinion, kind of understandable. I do think some of the models are really cool. They offer up a lot of really cool opportunities. I just don't know the appeal, at least for me. I've looked at the models quite a few times. I have a few of the Warcry Underworld Warbands, and most of the time I'll actually just take one of those models and run it as something else, because usually it's on the correct base size for a different, like model, because usually the Warbands are models that are technically already existing sometimes. Otherwise, they're sometimes very different. But, like, oh, I'm running, this Underworld's leader as mega boss or something, what have you. Like, basically, there are some equivalents like that where it's kind of fits on the same thing, and other times it's not because they're got to be on smaller bases because they got to go on hexes, and there's a card building element to it. I don't know that Underworld is gonna make it. I hope they continue on with some of those kind of models, but I don't. I feel like the other games are just a little bit better. If I'm being honest, I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to yuck anyone's yum. If you love Underworlds, that's awesome. Big thumbs up. I've watched it once or twice. I personally don't see the appeal of it. There's just other games that I'd rather. If I wanted to do more of a card building element, I'd go to like Magic or something like that. If I wanted the board game aspect, I'd just play a board game, right? So I think it's in a weird little spot where it is a Warhammer property. I don't know it's going to be a huge Warhammer property much longer, especially seeing as now they seem to be bundling war bands into big boxes of 4. In my case, I only wanted to pick up 1 or 2, so usually I just aim for those 1 or 2 war bands, and that's about it. Some of those have been making their way back into Age of Sigmar as well, so you might see some more people pick them up. Seraphon just got one. That's now a unit in Age of Sigmar, but there you have it. So maybe Underworld is your game, but I think there's better options. So those are some of your major Warhammer options out there. I kind of hope this video helps clarify it a little bit, or at least helps give you a general direction. And I hope that those 3 subsections point you in the direction you're looking to go. Again, down in the comments, let me know. Are you new to the game and you're trying to find which one you're looking for, which Warhammer property would interest you most? Are you an existing player that you're just like, maybe the game that you're currently playing isn't what you're enjoying the most and you're trying to find another one? Let me know down in the comments down below. And of course, if you like this content, feel free to like, share, subscribe. I've got a Patreon. Come join us. Right now, I've got my members in there, and we've been activating that Discord. But I would love to see it as well. I have a $1 tier. I got $1 a month. You can find 4 quarters, 50 nickels. No, yeah, 50 nickels. Whatever the math is, I'm not good at it. But long story short, we have a $1 tier, gets you access to a couple general channels. But if you want to be, an absolute lad, then jump in on the 5-1. You get all the specific channels. There's a bunch of stuff in there. I'm starting to open it up. Come join us there. But until next time, no matter what game system it is, whether it's Age of Sigmar, whether it's Warhammer 40k, whether it's, I don't know where I put it, Horus Heresy, it's down there right now. The book's down there. Then come join us over there. And until next time, go paint something.